Intune for Education has a simplified interface that is great for 90% of what IT directors at schools need to do. However, during some cases, an IT director will need to go to Microsoft Endpoint Manager in order to configure more advanced policies. What we will look at in this video is establishing Enterprise Wi-Fi and deploying legacy applications within Microsoft Endpoint Manager. In order to configure Enterprise Wi-Fi, in Microsoft Endpoint Manager, we will go to Devices, then Configuration Policies. Inside of Configuration Policies, we will select Create Profile. From the drop-down menu, we will select Windows 10 and later, as we are configuring Wi-Fi for Windows 10 devices in this scenario. From the drop-down menu, we'll scroll down to the very bottom where we see Wi-Fi and select Wi-Fi. Once in the Wi-Fi configuration page, a tutorial or wizard pops up where we can begin configuring the Wi-Fi policies that we would like to target to our Windows 10 devices. You'll see from the drop-down I've selected that it is Enterprise Wi-Fi, which exposes multiple options. For the EAP type, I'm going to select PEEP, as that is a common scenario inside of schools. And you'll see that the PEEP settings are exposed. Once satisfied with all entries, I can select Create. Once created, that policy will need to be targeted to my Windows devices through Azure Security Groups. Now we are going to deploy an EXE application through Microsoft Endpoint Manager. We do so by selecting Apps, selecting Windows Apps, and at the top of the page clicking the Add button. Here we can add Store apps, Office apps, but for our scenario, we want to add Windows app Win32. This brings us to the wizard on deploying EXE applications. The first step is to upload that EXE file. However, we cannot upload a .exe to Microsoft Endpoint Manager. We first need to wrap it as a .intune win file. To do that, we need to download a tool from Github. At the bottom of the screen, you see the address for the Microsoft Win32 content prep tool that's hosted on github.com. Navigate to this address to download the tool. Click Clone or Download, then Download zip file. Extract the zip file and open up the application. We will use this application to take our EXE files and convert them to .intune win files. Now let's open the Win32 content prep tool. Opening the tool, I'm prompted to specify the source folder, which is the folder where the EXE is located. My source folder is my desktop, and the file is schools_sep.exe. I would like this .intune win file to be saved to the desktop. Following those steps, I can now go to my desktop and see a new file that is the .intune win file format, the file format I can upload to Microsoft Endpoint Manager. Now back in Microsoft Endpoint Manager, you'll see that I have selected the setup.intune win file to upload. After selecting OK, I am prompted for more information. For instance, I need to put a publisher. I can add additional information here as well. Selecting Next, I can insert the commands to install the .intune win file. For this example, this one It's pretty easy. It's just the exe name and the uninstall command. On the requirements page, I can select whether it needs to be 32-bit or 64-bit architecture, the minimum Windows 10 operating system build, and then some optional requirements as well. In order to make sure the program has installed successfully, I need to create a detection rule. In this case, I'm going to configure a manual detection rule where it's going to search for a file to prove that the application has successfully installed. To do this, I've gone to a successful install of the program on another computer and found an example file, and we'll use that file as a detection rule. So because this file exists or does not exist on one of the targeted computers will be evidence of whether or not the program successfully installed. Additionally, I can set up dependencies, scope tags, but now that I've created this package, I need to add it to a devices group. For this demonstration, we're going to add it to the partners group. Therefore, devices in the partners group will have this exe that's been wrapped as a .intune win file installed on their computers. It is important to note that this .intune win application will not appear in Intune for Education. It can only be created in Microsoft Endpoint Manager and targeted from Microsoft Endpoint Manager. Intune for Education is a great solution for schools managing Windows 10 and iOS devices. However, in some cases, they will need to go to Microsoft Endpoint Manager to configure more complex settings or deploy EXE applications. In this video, we looked at how to deploy Enterprise Wi-Fi profiles via Microsoft Endpoint Manager and how to wrap EXE files using our Github tool and uploading the .intune win application file format into Microsoft Endpoint Manager for deployment.